The immediate rematch has become a bit of a pest in recent years, truth be told. There have been many immediate rematches which we thought are just wasting time. We already got our answer in the first fight, and given how slow boxing moves, we need to see certain key fighters progress with their careers and go on to fight who we view as more deserving rivals. Look at the fact now we're entertaining the idea of Crawford-Spence too. Well, this is what they're telling us. There might be a rematch at 147, 154. Look how one-sided that was. It's a pure waste of time if that takes place. Zhang Joyce 2, though, this is like the one shred of credibility in the heavyweight division in the whole of 2023. Yes, I'm happy we're getting this rematch. And we should all continue to echo the fact that in what's got to be one of the weakest years in heavyweight history, these guys stepped up. They accepted the risks of a fight that wasn't for a world title. Fair play to the pair of them. Of course, it was Joyce who suffered the loss, got stopped, probably making us revise a little bit some of the hype that we had coming into this fight off the back of what he did to Joseph Parker, which I did think was a very good performance, showed a lot of his qualities as a fighter. Those who were comparing him sometimes to George Foreman, of course, going a little bit over the top. Contrary to the destructive memory of a young George Foreman, he was actually a better boxer than Joyce. He moved better, believe it or not. And he just simply wasn't as open. Joyce will approach you quite square. He is too dismissive of what is coming his way. Of course, he can't be like that again against Zhang. Now, the most interesting moment that happened in the first fight in relation to this upcoming rematch was just before Zhang got the stoppage. And Joyce has accumulated too much facial damage at this point, is that Zhang was definitely tiring. A few of us saw this. And stamina issues are really what came back to haunt him when he lost to Filip Hrgović. I remember watching that one live, having been very impressed with the way Zhang put his combinations together for such a big man. I saw him start to wilt, the work rate completely dropped off, and I was thinking, man, he's leaving this to open now, and then what do you know, the decision went against him. Having poor stamina, which at 40 years of age now isn't going to be getting any better, and pretty poor mobility. He's very much stuck in the mud, Zhang, as he slowly gets towards you, always rooted for power and the opportunity to counterpunch. This is clearly the route for Joyce to try and carve out some kind of awkward victory, or maybe a late stoppage. It almost calls for a bit of a rewiring job in the gym because, as we saw in the first fight, Zhang's physicality, how sharp he is on the counter, that really offsets that imposing trudge that Joyce normally brings into the ring. The good news is, looking at the likes of the Dubois victory, he can be quite steady, he can be patient, he can just use only the jab, which gives the opponent less opportunities to pick up on one of his many mistakes. If he tries to peck and poke away and can maybe integrate some sort of clinching game, easier said than done, but of course it frustrates opponents, this could be the strategy needed to find his way to a W. Apart from being technically younger at 37, you do get the sense that Joyce is just better conditioned, that he naturally has superior stamina. If he can kind of keep his main weapons sheathed and just chip away, wait, maybe having to take the odd big shot, if he can time when to turn it on, that could really change things. Now, I'd imagine Team Zhang is going to try and counter this anticipated game plan by cutting off the ring a bit more, by getting Joyce to engage, forcing him to into a game where he's definitely going to come off second best. He doesn't have the punch selection. He has slower hands, despite technically being, isn't he, a little bit lighter? Zhang is very quick on the draw. He has a tremendous check right hook, and that helps move you into, of course, that deadly backhand. Joyce's poor head movement is something you're never going to be able to fix at this stage, so you have to tell him to use his feet, maybe inject the odd clinch, as I say, to try and bleed Zhang's energy early on. Try and get it to that shifting point where he's a little bit slower, where you can safely go in and out, just in and out of range, and he can't quite punish you anymore. Joyce is going to have to use his athleticism, and it's funny to say, yes, his youth, to try and get him past that critical point, and then decide from there whether he wants to keep chipping away or push for a stoppage. I got to say that this is quite a tough fight to call. We know that Zhang is a technically superior fighter. We know that if Joyce wants to get a bit too lively early, he's just going to come up into some kind of trouble. We don't know how his chin has been affected since the first fight. If he got dropped, if he got hurt visibly early, that wouldn't surprise any of us, I don't think. Zhang really does live up to his nickname, and if he feels he's really got the measure of Joyce and how he moves, you might see something more destructive. What I kind of suspect is because I know Zhang does have that weakness in him with the stamina, and that it's got to be priority number one for Team Joyce to get around that they are going to be able to use their fresher legs, that he's going to be able to exercise some of that caution and patience that he did against Dubois, maybe a couple more tricks to get him away from the real danger zone, and then maybe start to take over. But just as I start to mould out that version of events, I'm thinking, well, Zhang can always get his second or third wind, and he might just be able to walk Joyce onto something pretty big, who, of course, doesn't really move his head. Having said all of that, there's about 51% of me against the other 49 that thinks that Joyce can do this. He's just got to start carefully, use the ring, all the things surely that are a priority in the early goings when Zhang is going to be trying to close the gap and force him to exchange. He can try and be awkward, he can be patient, he can maybe jab to the body. Hang just outside of range, get him to follow you. Run the clock down, get him to move around, because energy will be leaking out of somebody that big minute by minute. Whether he's able to turn on the afterburners and get a stoppage later on really depends on how much Zhang tires and how dangerous he remains. I could see it having quite a few ebbs and flows with the Joyce game plan working and then having to really take some heavy stuff. But maybe he doesn't take quite the same facial damage, maybe he doesn't get floored, and he's able to maintain the concentration levels needed to keep it all together and get the revenge W. But how do we all see this one going? Let me know if you sympathise with my view. I can imagine there's a lot of people who really just see Zhang as a stylistic nightmare, and he's going to win again easier, maybe even quicker. Who takes this one, and how?